Alright, we are live. Hello everyone, and welcome to, the live stream for September 21st of 2023. Currently, I'll be covering the weather for September 21st of 2023 for both slight risk regions for, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. However, if you do have any questions on potential tropical storm 16, do feel free to ask. However, I'm going to be primarily focusing on this. So if we take a look at what's currently going on, we do have a fairly favorable environment for tornadic development. With that trough advection not covered in today's forecast, you can go check that out if you want. However, we do have a fairly favorable environment for tornadic development across Nebraska and Kansas. We do have a slight risk region with a 5% tornado threat and a 15% hail threat. We should also see the threat of large hail, primarily large. We could see large to very large hail with some of the longitude photographs that we see, as well as a threat of damaging winds. With a 15% wind threat. But currently we have a couple tornado warnings. Actually, we have two tornado warnings that are currently ongoing. We have a tornado warning for this cell in not really impacting anywhere, but it's to the west of Gothenburg. Let me switch to reflectivity on this panel. And you can see that we do have fairly good indicators of tornadic development with this system as well. We got the, hold on, let me switch to a color that's a little bit better to see. We got the hooking feature. We got the hook, and then we also have the inflow notch, and our tornado would be somewhere in there. So we definitely have we definitely have a few indicators, some fairly good indicators of tornadic development. We also have this rotation here. The radar site is somewhere off to the east. So we have greens going towards the radar site and reds going away. So we do have a fairly good, fairly prominent radar velocity couplet, which will definitely indicate the threat of tornadic development currently ongoing with this system in particular. However, if we take a look at our correlation coefficient, it doesn't really look like we have any sort of notable drop, so we probably don't have a tornado on the ground as of right now. However, this could definitely drop at any time. We have very good indicators that there is tornadic development currently ongoing. With that threat that we have, or with this rotation that we have, and very clear indicators of tornadic development are currently ongoing with this storm in particular, as well as large hail. So currently it doesn't really have a track towards any big cities. Really, it's not really going towards any fairly populated areas. However, we do have some country roads with some buildings out here that are in the tornado warning, as well as Interstate 80 here, and possibly Gothenburg as well. So even if it does appear that it is pretty far out as of right now, you do definitely want to be taking shelter if you are in the path of this storm. This tornado could drop at any time. Currently, it does look like we might be shedding this hook in particular, and we might get a second area of rotation. We currently have what seems to be two areas of rotation, so this hook could be shedding and being replaced with this other hook that's hooking down. So you have this secondary hook, and then you have the first hook, and then you see that we have a gap in the middle. So we definitely have two hooks in two areas of rotation. So we could be seeing the outermost hook being shed off in this one becoming more dominant. So we do have some fairly good indicators of tornadic development. Again, you want to be taking shelter if you do live in any of the areas, or are currently in any of the areas that could potentially see impacts from the storm, as this tornado could drop at any time. As of right now, I'm not really sure. I know that there are chasers out there. This is currently a radar indicated system. There are chasers out there. There's no indication of it being on the ground as of right now. However, it could drop at any time. Now let's take a look at this tornado warning here. Let's see if we can get a better view of it. It's kind of hard to see. Okay, we have a much better view from this radar site. Actually, I can't see our radar sites. Okay, there we go. So we have a much better view of this rotation here. We have tons of rotation. We got you can see that we have the hook there. It is probably a rain wrap tornado. We do have quite a bit of precipitation around this thing, and we do have very clear signs of rotation as well. We have a very broad and strong velocity couplet, so we are definitely seeing some strong rotation with this storm. And we could definitely see tornadic. We are definitely seeing tornadic development with this storm in particular. As of right now, let's check the correlation coefficient. It doesn't look like there's any indicator of it being on the ground. You see where we do have a little bit of a correlation coefficient drop. We could maybe see a little bit of dust being picked up off of the ground by this rotation. However, it could also be a little bit of contamination from hail, because we are expected to see, we definitely do have large hail in this region. Let me switch back to velocity here. Currently, this system is going directly for McCook. If you do live in McCook, if you're tuning in from McCook, definitely take shelter immediately. This storm is on its way. We could definitely see this could drop at any time. So if you do live in McCook, make sure you are definitely taking the necessary precautions and taking shelter, because this could lead to we are definitely seeing tornadic development with this system in particular, so you definitely want to be taking shelter if you live in any of the areas that could potentially be impacted, especially in McCook, Perry, as well as the McCook Ben Nelson Regional Airport. So make sure you are taking shelter if you live in any of the areas that could potentially be impacted by this storm. But let's check back up on the other supercell here that we had tornadic development for. Let's switch back to this radar site. We are at the one at the north. I was at this one, but it does look like we have a little bit of a better view from this one. You can see that we definitely do have strong winds going towards the radar site and strong winds going away from the radar site. So we definitely do have rotation with this storm in particular, enough to warrant a tornado warning. And we also have large hail. And as of right now, it does look like this hook that I was mentioning, the secondary hook, has become more dominant. It is shedding this other hook. It is now just like a little knob off the western edge of the storm. So this hook is becoming more it's becoming more dominant in this storm. It's becoming the more dominant updraft. So we are expected to see tornadic development out of this system in particular. We may see a little bit of a westward shift in this tornado warning in the next 9 minutes when it is updated. Again, we do have a very large tornado watch for this 5% tornado threat across this region. Conditions are definitely very favorable for tornadic development. We've seen, I think, 3 or 4 tornado warnings already for this location, so do keep that in mind. We are definitely seeing we are definitely seeing a very favorable environment for tornadic development. And again, we are definitely going to, again, let's take a look at the correlation coefficient, so I can stop repeating myself. As of right now, it doesn't look like we have any indication of it being on the ground. Let me switch back to velocity on this side. It does look like we may have a little bit of a correlation coefficient drop with this area of blue here. This, I'm not really sure if this is a correlation coefficient drop. It could be contamination. It is very far from the radar site. And we also, if we switch back to reflectivity here, we do have a little bit of a gap in the inflow notch, and a little bit of occlusion from the main storm. So this could be associated with just clear air. So this may not be a correlation coefficient drop, but again, we are still definitely seeing tornadic development coming out of the storm. So if you do live in the path of this, system, definitely make sure that you are make sure that you're watching for warnings. Make sure that you are taking shelter if you're along Interstate 80 or in Gothenburg or possibly even Roman. We are definitely seeing very strong indicators of this being indicating tornadic development. This velocity couplet, I think it has gotten a little bit stronger since the last radar scan. We can confirm that actually it does look like it was possibly a little better back, but that does look like it was when it was still developing. However, this is still very, very strong rotation here. We do have winds going towards the radar site and winds going away from the radar site. So we definitely do have strong indicators of tornadic development ongoing. And we could definitely see a tornado drop at any time with this storm. If you live in any of the areas that could see impacts from the system, anywhere along, anywhere ahead of the storm, in the blue circle or along Interstate 80, or in Gothenburg, definitely make sure you are taking shelter. Even though you may be out of the warning cone, you could, I think you may have a tornado warning. Sometimes it gives you a tornado warning even if you're not in the warning cone. So definitely, you may have a tornado warning. If you don't and you're tuning in, make sure you are taking shelter. Make sure you are definitely taking shelter and taking the necessary precautions if you live in any of the areas that could potentially be impacted by the storm. But then if we take, let's go back down to the tornado warning for McCook. Let's switch radar site so we can see a little bit better, where we had that better view. It does look like we have very, very strong rotation still. We have very, very strong rotation. We got winds going towards the radar site and winds going away from the, actually, nope. We have winds that are going, hold on, sorry here. We got winds are going towards the radar site and winds are going away from the radar site. And the radar site is in this, it is to the southwest. So we are definitely seeing a very broad and very strong rotation associated with this supercell. And again, let's check correlation coefficients. Correlation coefficiency. It doesn't look like we have a correlation coefficiency drop. We may have a little bit of a lower correlation coefficiency to the north of what looks to be Interstate 6.34. I'm not sure what that is supposed to mean, but we do have this little bit of a correlation coefficiency drop. However, this is most likely going to be contamination from hail. This is not going to be associated with any type of tornadic debris in the air. Its rotation is down here, the rotation's down here, and this correlation coefficiency drop would be up here. So we aren't seeing any correlation coefficiency drop associated with this current supercell. As of right now, even though there are no signs of it being on the ground, we are definitely seeing very strong indicators of tornadic development from the system. And we could see a tornado drop at any time with this storm. We do have very strong rotation. Again, we could see the threat. We could see a tornado drop at any time with this storm. So if you live in any of the affected areas that could potentially be impacted by this system, make sure you are taking shelter, especially McCook or Perry, or anywhere across Lazy L Mobile Ranch or McCook Ben Nelson Regional Airport. Make sure you are taking shelter. We could see a tornado drop at any time, and compared from the last radar scan, we have much stronger rotation. The outbound pixels are much stronger, and I think the inbound pixels may be a little stronger too. Yeah, you can see that we do have a very strong increase in strength with this rotation. It is fairly broad, but it is very strong. So we are definitely seeing increasing tornadic increasing tornadic threat from this storm, and we could see a tornado drop at any time. If we switch back to our correlation coefficiency, it doesn't look like we have any tornadic debris signature on the ground as of right now. So even though there is no tornado on the ground, we could see a tornado drop at any time. So if you do live in McCook or Lazy L Mobile Ranch, or at the McCook Ben Nelson Regional Airport, or in Perry, make sure you are taking shelter, as again this tornado could drop at any time. Even though there's not one on the ground currently, this could drop at any time. But then let's go back to the tornado warning for just to the west of Gothenburg. I think that the rotation may have decreased a little bit. Yeah, it does look like it's decreased a little bit. It does look like it was a little better. We were seeing inbound pixels that were going to be as strong as 60 miles per hour. So that has decreased a little bit. However, we definitely still have rotation associated with this supercell. So we could definitely see ongoing tornadic development. Let's check the correlation coefficiency again, and then I'll check out the storms that are currently in Oklahoma and Texas and give you an idea as for those. let's check let's check correlation coefficient. Let's switch to velocity on this side. It doesn't look like we have it doesn't look like we have any sort of correlation coefficient drop associated with this rotation or this velocity couplet. So there probably isn't a tornado on the ground as of right now. However, again, the tornado could drop at any time. So definitely make sure you are taking shelter if you live in Gothenburg or any where along Interstate 80 if you are near this tornado warning. Make sure you are taking shelter. Even though there's not a tornado on the ground, this could drop at any time. Now let's go down and take a look at some of the storms that are currently ongoing in Oklahoma. We're also expected to see the threat of a weaker tornado threat. We have a 2% tornado threat for this slight risk region, as well as a 15% wind threat and a 15% hail threat. More so the primary threat of damaging winds and small to medium hail. So let's take a look at some of these storms that we are seeing across Oklahoma and northern Texas. I'm not sure what would be a good radar site for this. It looks like we are either going to have to use Dallas radar, Dallas-Fort Worth radar, or Oklahoma City radar. You can see that we do have quite a bit of storm development ongoing as of right now. Even with this storm that is currently ongoing in Denison, it does look like we are seeing a little bit of rotation development. It isn't strong enough to really initiate a tornado warning from the National Weather Service yet. Again, we still have the potential for tornadoes across this region. You have a little bit of a favorable environment for tornadic development across Oklahoma in this slight risk region, so we could see some tornadic development. However, we are expected to see more of a threat of damaging winds and large or small to medium hail. However, we are seeing very large hail in this supercell in particular, where we have the developing rotation. We are seeing very large hail associated with this. We have very deep purples, and we are even seeing up to the 70 dBz. So we are definitely seeing very large hail associated with this storm. Let's actually take a look at something. Radar Omega did have a new update recently where you can get like a 3D view of the storm. So let's go to the supercell that we were currently focusing on. Actually, let's highlight it a little bit. Okay, so now we have. Okay, that they didn't really do it that good for that one. All right, now we go. Now we have it. Let's change the reflectivity preset to hail so we're able to see. Ooh, okay, never mind. I closed it out. Let's go back into it and do that really quickly. But while this loads, we are seeing a major increase in reflectivity here. We are seeing DBZ that is getting up to 76.00 dBz. That is a insanely high dBz, and will definitely indicate definitely be indicating large to very large hail across this region. This is some of the highest reflectivity pixels I've seen in a very long time. Let's see how far that goes on the chart actually. If it will let me, and it doesn't really look like it is letting me, but that is up there. That is really up there. We are definitely seeing large hail across Denison. So if you do live in Denison, make sure you are getting inside if you're in the path of the storm. This hail is likely destructive if it is large hail, which it most likely is. This is likely very large hail. So that we are definitely seeing destructive hail with the storm. So if you do live in Denison, Texas, make sure you are make sure you are getting inside and staying safe from the storm, as you definitely do not want to be outside in this hail, as this hail could potentially become deadly. But let's go back to our 3D volumetric thing for a second. Let's take a look at the hail thing. If we go to hail, the hail preset, and then we close out the settings, you can see we have what looks to be tons of hail. We have a very large region of very strong hail. We got we are definitely expected to see destructive hail with this. Let's actually decrease the reflectivity gate a little bit. Let's get it into the 70s, into the 60s. And then let's go a little bit farther down. block out some of the 70s, because it did look like we were seeing. Okay, never mind. My superstition hasn't been confirmed. But let's actually go back to some of the storms that are going to be in Nebraska. I noticed that someone just joined. If you live in any of these affected areas and you have any questions, definitely feel free to ask. Or with potential Tropical Storm 16 here, if you have any questions with those, definitely feel free to ask. But currently, I'm going to be covering the slight risk region, this slight risk region for Nebraska and Kansas, and the slight risk region for Oklahoma and Texas. So currently, it does look like that tornado warning for Gothenburg has expired as of now. I don't think rotation was strong enough to really see a continuating tornado threat, so I think they let it expire. Yeah, this rotation is much weaker compared to the last couple of radar frames, so we aren't really expected to see any more really of a tornado threat from that. But we still have this tornado threat for we still have this tornado warning for McCook. If we take a look at let's actually go back to our dual panel. Let's pull up reflectivity on this side, and then let's pull up correlation coefficient on this side. So currently, actually, let's pull up velocity on this side. So we do have a little bit weaker rotation compared to the last couple of radar scans. However, this is still strong and very broad rotation across this region. As of right now, for correlation coefficient, doesn't look like we have any sort of correlation coefficient drop to indicate that there would be a tornado on the ground. So even though there isn't a tornado on the ground, it could drop at any time, and it currently is impacting McCook. So if you do live in McCook or any of the surrounding regions, such as Perry, on Interstate 83 or whatever Interstate 6 bullet point 34 is, or McCook Ben Nelson Regional Airport, definitely make sure you are taking shelter, as a tornado could drop at any time. I will continue to focus on this tornado threat as of right now, this current tornado warning. The other one has expired as of now, so I'm going to be primarily focusing on this tornado warning. Let's go back to our reflectivity. With this, let's put reflectivity on this side, and let's switch to velocity on this side. So currently, this is probably a very rain-wrapped wall cloud. There's no tornado. I was about to say tornado, but there is no tornado. This is probably a very rain-wrapped wall cloud as of right now, so it's probably very difficult to see. We have tons of very strong reflectivity across this region. We have reflectivity that would be indicating large to very large hail with this storm, as well as it being on top of the velocity couplet. That would mean a rain-wrapped tornado threat associated with this velocity couplet. So currently, we could still see a tornado threat from this. Even though there is no correlation coefficient drop, a tornado could drop at any time. If you do live in McCook or the surrounding regions, definitely make sure you are taking shelter, as this could drop a tornado at any time. Yeah, and even if there is no tornado right now, you definitely still want to take shelter from hail. But again, make sure you are definitely taking shelter from this potential tornado and this very, very large hail. Even if there's still no correlation coefficient drop or anything to really indicate that there's a tornado currently on the ground. So as of right now, there's no tornado on the ground, but we could see a tornado drop at any time across this region with the velocity couplet. We have very strong reflectivity, and we have very strong velocity couplet. We have very strong rotation. Sorry, not reflectivity or velocity couplet. We have very strong rotation. Again, even if there is no correlation coefficient drop, we could definitely see a tornado drop at any time with this. Again, the threat for large hail does stand for this. We are expected to see a rain-wrapped threat from this as well. We are expected to see a potential rain-wrapped tornado if one does drop. The rotation does look like it has become a little bit less organized, so we could maybe see a little bit of a decline in our tornado threat going forward, which is good. As of right now, we still have the threat for very large to large hail. With this cell in particular, with all these purples that you're seeing, that is going to be indicating very large hail. As well as we have the rotation on, we still have the very broad and not as strong velocity couplet, but still fairly strong velocity couplet on the right. So we are definitely going to see we are still seeing the threat of a tornado dropping at any time associated with this storm. If we take a look at correlation coefficient, we are still seeing no correlation coefficient drop, so there's probably not a tornado on the ground as of right now. However, we could definitely see a tornado drop at any time associated with this storm. So let's actually go back down and take a look at that one cell that was along the Red River, where we had that very large hail. It doesn't look like we have as large hail anymore. We do have a little bit of a decrease in reflectivity. However, we are still seeing pixels that are going to be into the 70 dBz. That's still going to be insane for hail. That's going to be indicating very, very large hail for this cell in particular. We also do have a we do have a some rotation. We do have a little bit of a velocity couplet. However, this is more so a clockwise pattern, so this may not be rotation because it's not anticyclonic. This isn't really associated with any tornadic development because it is going to be mostly actually, hold on, I may be wrong here. Where's our radar site? Okay, our radar site is to the south. Let me trace our yeah, never mind. I don't know why I was saying that the reds were going towards the radar site. That is my fault. So currently we do have some developing rotation with this storm that is currently impacting Denison, Texas. Even if we don't have a tornado warning with this, we may get one in the future. We do have developing rotation with this, and we do have the threat of tornadic development across this region, across Oklahoma. It is going to be a little bit less compared to Nebraska and Kansas. However, we still have the threat of tornadic development, and we definitely do see developing rotation associated with this storm, as well as the threat of large to very large hail, and possibly even gorilla hail with this storm. We are seeing very, very high reflectivity. So if we don't have a tornado warning for this, we may have one in the future, but I would still suggest taking shelter if you live in Denison, Texas, as we could definitely see very large hail, and you do not want to be outside when very large hail is falling, as it could potentially be deadly. So let's go back to the tornado warning for McCook. I actually do have a few things I have to do, so I am going to leave this pulled up. I'm going to let you watch its development. However, I do have a few things I have to do, so I will be right back. But I will leave this pulled up so you can see this, so you can continue to watch it develop and see how it's changing. Sorry, I'm tripping up on my words a little bit, but I do have some things I have to do. Before I go, let's actually check back up on correlation coefficient. Correlation coefficiency. It doesn't look like we have a tornado on the ground. We don't have any correlation coefficient drop. However, we could see one drop at any time, and we are seeing a major decrease in rotation with that velocity couplet. We are definitely seeing a less organization with this velocity couplet. So we may see we are continuing to see a little bit of a decrease in our tornado potential with this storm. However, we do have a little bit of developing rotation to the southeast of that. It does look like we have a little bit of velocity couplet developing. However, the green inbound pixels and the red outbound pixels would be anticyclonic, so this is probably not a velocity couplet right here. However, we do have a little bit of rotation right here with outbound pixels going away and inbound pixels going towards it, so that would be anticyclonic. That would be cyclonic rotation. So we are definitely seeing some rotation develop off of this, even if the main rotation is beginning to weaken down a little bit. We still have the threat of some tornadic development with this, even if it is on more of a downward trend. And you do want to be taking shelter if you do live in any of the affected areas. If you live in McCook, Perry, if you're at the McCook Ben Nelson Regional Airport or the Lazy L Mobile Range, definitely make sure you are taking shelter. As we could see a tornado drop at any time, even if there isn't one on the ground. But I do have to take care of some things, so I will leave this pulled up so you guys can watch it and see how it develops over time. But I will be right back. Oh, that's crazy. All right, guys, a few more things, and then I can return to what I've been covering. So, while I work on this, currently we do have a little bit of rotation that is still going. If you're looking at this and thinking it is rotation, these are inbound pixels, these are outbound pixels. That would be in a clockwise fashion. That would be anticyclonic, so that would most likely not be rotation. However, we do have a little bit of weaker rotation to the south, where we do have outbound pixels going away from the radar site and inbound pixels going towards the radar site, where we do have cyclonic rotation, so we could see some developing rotation towards the south eastern side of McCook, as well as some broad but continuing to weaken rotation towards the northwestern side of McCook. That got even worse with the current radar scan. This may continue. This may be left to expire after this moves out of the warning box, and we may not see a tornado warning for this area of rotation right here, because this isn't really rotation. However, we could see a tornado warning that could potentially be added for this area of rotation as of right now. If you do have any questions regarding the current weather that is going on right now, feel free to ask, and I will most likely answer. But let's actually take a look at the storms that are currently going on in Oklahoma. We do have a secondary threat. We do have a second slight risk for Oklahoma into northern Texas. We are expected to see the threat of small to medium hail and the threat of damaging winds, as well as the threat of 1 or 2 brief tornadoes. We could still see the threat of tornadoes across this region. We do have a little bit more of a tornado threat back towards Nebraska and Kansas. However, we still have a tornado threat for this, even though it's not as strong. But overall, our main threats for this should be hail and damaging winds, small to medium hail. But we could still see the threat of some tornadic development. Let me find a better radar site for this, because we were seeing. Okay, never mind. We got a good radar site for this. We were seeing a little bit of developing rotation with this. However, it's way too it's way too contaminated to see this far away from the radar site. We are still seeing the threat of a large hail for this storm in Denison, Texas, before it crosses over into the Red River. As of right now, it is beginning to weaken a little bit. However, we are still seeing large to very large hail. Did look a little bit better earlier, but as of right now, it is fairly strong. We are still seeing the threat of we are still seeing large to very large hail with this. Overall, we did see a little bit of enveloping rotation, but that has subsided a little bit. I mean, we can't tell if it's subsided because it's way too far away from the radar site to really tell. It's way too contaminated. There's no way of telling if it's still rotating like this. But then if we take a look at this right here, we do have what looks to be maybe some contamination. However, that could also be a little bit of rotation, but it's probably mostly contamination. But we could see some rotation with that. And anywhere where you're seeing some of the very deep reds, like right here, and into the purples, that is going to indicate small to medium hail. So we are definitely seeing the threat of small to medium hail with this as well. Stream twisted, I can't right now. We have ongoing significant severe weather that I have to cover. But let's continue to focus on this tornado warning. This may be set to expire as the rotation that was triggering this has moved out of the warning box mostly and has weakened significantly. We maybe could see it pick back up a little bit. However, it is going to be more on a downward trend. We shouldn't really, I don't think that this rotation is going to strengthen back up. It's probably going to continue to weaken. You can see it got even worse with the new radar scan. So this is probably going to continue to be on a downward trend. But we do have a weird thing here. This isn't going to be rotation, as we have outbound pixels, but then we also have inbound pixels. So this is going to be a little bit of convergence right on that boundary, because the radar site is to the southwest. So this is inbound pixels, this is outbound pixels. So we are seeing those come together. So it's kind of odd. This is most likely not rotation though, but we could maybe see some developing rotation towards the southern end of that, where we do have some inbound pixels and some outbound pixels, where we do have some cyclonic rotation. So we could see some developing rotation to the southwest of McCook that could continue to increase in strength and warrant a tornado warning later on. However, as of right now, this tornado warning is most likely going to just be set to expire. I do not think that this tornado warning is going to continue to sit here with the rotation that triggered it continuing to weaken down significantly and mostly moving out of the warning box. So again, this tornado warning is most likely going to expire after what seems to be 6 minutes. But we could maybe see some increasing rotation to the southwest of McCook that could warrant a tornado warning later on. However, right now it doesn't have a tornado warning, but I will keep you posted. And I do have to continue working on something. I just stepped back in a little bit to mention that. But I gotta continue working on what I'm doing, and I will be right back. I'm gonna leave the radar up so you guys can continue to track, but right now I have to work on something really quickly. All right. So, We are currently still looking at a continuing decrease in this rotation to the northwest of McCook. This is what originally warranted the tornado warning. However, this is weakening significantly. This is likely not going to continue. This tornado warning is likely going to be set to expire in the very near future, in the next 4 minutes. We do have some developing rotation. It is fairly weak as of right now, but it could continue to increase and warrant a tornado warning later on. As of right now, it's too weak to really warrant a tornado warning, but it's to the southeast of McCook. We could see some developing rotation. In the middle of the velocity couplet, it is fairly weak, so this rotation is definitely on the weaker side, but it could continue. It could strengthen over time, but as of right now, this is not really going to be enough to really warrant a tornado warning, but it might in the future. Does look like we have a little bit of rotation here as well to the south of McCook. It is going to be, it's fairly tight, but it is also fairly weak as well. It could be fairly strong. I'm not really sure. It looks to be fairly tight, but we are very far from the radar site. We are how far are we actually? I'm not really sure. We are, never mind, that doesn't give me a very good distance. Now I have a triangle that I have to get rid of. We are 81 miles away from the radar site, so we are definitely seeing a bunch of contamination this far out. But it does look like we have a little bit of rotation, a little bit of weaker end rotation with inbound pixels and outbound pixels, and a very little small velocity couplet here. So that maybe could keep the tornado warning going. However, I don't think it's going to continue. Never mind, it has been updated back to 8 minutes. So this is going to continue to warrant the tornado warning. This little area of rotation here, I didn't notice that until just a few minutes ago. So this is going to continue to warrant this tornado warning and keep it going. So we could also maybe see a little bit of rotation develop to the south. As of right now, it doesn't really look like it's all that strong because we have very weak center rotation. So this rotation right here, this velocity couplet, as of right now, is going to be the primary triggering factor for this tornado warning. We could see the threat. We could see tornadic development associated with this rotation. As of right now, it doesn't look like we have any sort of correlation coefficient drop. Anywhere that you are currently seeing low correlation coefficient or medium correlation coefficient is going to be associated with a large hail. If you're seeing this is likely associated with contamination from being so far away from the radar site, as well as hail. But we also have very, very large hail. We have very large and even gorilla hail across McCook into the south of McCook. We have DBZ that is getting as high as 70. So we are definitely seeing large to very large hail associated with that. So definitely make sure if you live in any of the affected areas that are being impacted by this large to very large hail or this current tornado warning, make sure you are definitely taking shelter, as this currently there is no correlation coefficient drop. There's no indicator of this tornado being on the ground. However, it could drop at any time. Make sure you are definitely taking shelter if you live in any of the affected areas or currently being impacted by hail. You do not want to be outside while it's hailing very large hailstones, as it is likely going to be deadly if you go outside in very large hailstones. So again, definitely take shelter if you live in any of the affected areas. And I will continue to keep you posted. Let's actually check back up on some of the storms in Oklahoma and Texas. The threats for the slight risk for Oklahoma and Texas are going to be that 2% tornado threat, that 15% hail threat, and that 15% wind threat, with the primary threats being damaging winds and small to medium hail. Let's choose a radar site here. Let's go to the Dallas radar site. We don't really got a... we are fairly strong from all the radar sites, really. Nowhere are we really close to any radar site, but the best radar site we could probably use is going to be this one. Again, we do have the potential for some tornadic development. we do have this area of rotation that could potentially be developing very slowly. So we could potentially see a future tornado warning associated with this velocity couplet. As of right now, there isn't a tornado warning on it, but it could potentially warrant one later if it continues to increase. But we are seeing some hail with this as well. We are seeing anywhere where you're seeing these dark reds and these low purples, we are definitely seeing some hail with that. So we are seeing small to medium hail with this, as well as a developing tornado threat from this. So as of right now, we don't have a tornado warning, but we could see one in the future. But I'm going to go back up to our tornado threat and our slight risk for the slight risk region for Nebraska and Kansas. Let's go to this to what used to be the tornado warning. The tornado warning has been canceled right now. As of right now, we don't have the tornado warning here anymore. This rotation is fairly weak. It is still there. We do have a little bit of velocity couplet with inbound pixels and outbound pixels with some cyclonic rotation. As of right now, it is very, very weak right now. So it's not really going to warrant a tornado warning. And what you're seeing here, this is going to be outbound pixels. This is going to be inbound pixels. So we do have convergence here. But that is not rotation, that's convergence. That would not warrant a tornado warning. We could see some developing rotation from this down to the south with inbound pixels and outbound pixels forming a velocity couplet. As of right now, it does look like it is a little bit better compared to one or two radar scans back. It was much weaker back one or two radar scans. However, it is continuing to increase in strength, and we could potentially see a tornado warning or an increasing tornado threat with this in the future. I will continue to track this, but as of right now, it doesn't have a tornado warning, and we don't have any tornado warnings as of right now. Let's actually take a look at some of the threats that we have. So we do have storm surge warnings, tropical storm warnings, and storm surge watch. This is going to be associated with tropical storm potential 10, or I thought it was 16. Yeah, 16. I somehow read it as 10. But as of right now, we are expected to see a tropical storm that could impact some of the coastal regions of North Carolina, Virginia, and the Chesapeake Bay into Maryland, and even as far north as Long Island, along the coast. We are expected to see this impact by tomorrow. We could see a tornado threat with this, as well as the threat of some coastal flooding and some storm surge, as well as some flash flooding more inland. So we are expected to see some tropical storm impacts from this by tomorrow. Definitely stay weather alert if you're in the area of impact with this tropical storm potential 16. Potential tropical storm 16. Definitely make sure you are staying weather alert if you live in any of the areas that could potentially be impacted by tropical storm 16. Let's go back to the slight risk region for Nebraska and Kansas. If you couldn't tell, I'm a little out of it as of right now. I'm a little out of it. I kind of wish I wasn't covering the weather right now, but this is a little bit of an urgent threat. So I will be here, and I will be answering questions for this. If you have any questions, I will answer questions if you do have any questions. But as of right now, we don't really have a standing tornado warning. We could definitely still see the threat of some large hail wherever you're seeing these purples. We just got finished with large hail across McCook, but we are expected to see a second round of large hail back behind that, back to the southwest, that is going to likely impact McCook. We are also seeing a little bit of developing rotation, what looks like to be to the southwest of McCook again. We are expected to see what could potentially be a developing tornado threat to the southwest of McCook again. I will continue to keep you posted on this. As of right now, it is continuing to increase. This is a developing area of rotation. I will continue to focus on this. We could potentially see a increasing tornado threat with this and a potential tornado warning in the future for McCook again. I will continue to keep you posted on this. if you're seeing this right here, this is not rotation. This is convergence, where we have inbound pixels and outbound pixels combining together. The radar site is to the southwest, so we have outbound pixels and inbound pixels coming together for convergence. That's why you're seeing this very odd thing in where they're coming together. This very odd area here. So we are seeing convergence that is probably associated with a very strong updraft and definitely supporting the threat of large to very large hail and possibly even gorilla hail across this region. So do keep that in mind if you do live across McCook. You just got finished with large hail, however you do have a second round of large hail on the way, so continue staying sheltered and do not go outside if you are being impacted or if you're about to be impacted. If you live in McCook, you could see another threat for large hail in the next few minutes. Currently, we also do have developing rotation to the southwest of McCook again. I will continue to keep you guys posted on this. As of right now, it's a little bit of a weaker end threat, but it doesn't have a tornado warning on it. However, we could see one in the future with this velocity couplet. Alright, so let's check out some of these other storms. Let's switch to this radar site. Let's take a look at some of these storms across South Dakota and northern Nebraska. Does it look like we have a little bit more of a damaging wind threat with this? However, we could maybe see some notches develop along the squall line. This is probably, some of the models were indicating that this could potentially become an MCV by tomorrow and continue propagating eastward into Minnesota and Iowa by tomorrow. As of right now, this is going to mostly be a damaging wind and hail threat. As of right now, it's likely going to be more so small to medium hail. We don't really have those deep purples like we were seeing further down south. However, we do have some of the dark reds and some small areas of deep purples, so we could definitely see some small to medium hail with this, but overall we are expecting to see more of a damaging wind threat with this, and we do have an outflow boundary way ahead of this system, more so towards the south, that could, where you're seeing a lot of the, lower organization, lower intensity reflectivity, that is going to be because of this outflow boundary racing ahead of the storm, causing it to become weaker and more outflow dominant and weaken over time. As of right now, we should still see the threat of tornadoes. Some notches could develop along this line to support a tornado threat. Does it look like we have maybe a little bit of developing rotation? Our radar site is down here, so if we have outbound pixels, then we have a little bit of inbound pixels here, so that would be a little bit of weaker end cyclonic rotation, broad and weak end cyclonic rotation. So we maybe could see a developing tornado threat with this. As of right now, it is fairly weak and it is continuing to develop. Since the last couple of radar scans, it has gotten better and more organized, so we could potentially see a notch developing along this line. Again, conditions across this region are definitely favorable for tornadic development. Let's go down to McCook again, where we have that developing velocity couplet. Again, if you have any questions regarding these storms that are currently ongoing, definitely feel free to ask. I will most likely answer them. Let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at the velocity couplet that's continuing to develop and it could pose a tornado threat in the future. As of right now, it is fairly weak, but it is continuing to increase in intensity. Again, conditions across this region are definitely favorable for tornadic development, so we could definitely see some tornadic development and some developing rotation. We definitely do have some developing rotations fairly weak right now, but it has been increasing in intensity and organization and strength over the last couple of radar scans. I can actually show you those. Let me actually, yeah, okay, so you can see that we do have a developing velocity couplet here. It has gotten better over time, and it is continuing to increase in intensity and strength. So we are definitely seeing a building tornado threat from this. If you're seeing this right here, thinking it's rotation. It's not rotation. This is convergence, where we have inbound pixels and then outbound pixels on top of each other. The radar site is to the southwest. That's going to be convergence, because this wouldn't be a rotation. Those are inbound pixels and outbound pixels merging together and likely creating a very strong updraft in there as well to support a hail potential. And if you live in McCook, you just got finished with large hail. However, we are expected to see a second round of large hail back behind that one with this supercell here. This very would you even call this a supercell? Yeah, this would be a supercell. We are expected to see a second round of large hail back behind this round of large hail. We could definitely see large hail back behind, or large hail again for McCook. We are expected to see again, some more large hail. So if you do live in McCook, I don't suggest coming back out of shelter just yet. We are expected to see large hail again. So I do not suggest coming out of shelter if you live in McCook. You do want to wait through this this secondary hail threat, as you do not want to be outside during this. You do not want to be outside during very large hail, as it is likely going to become deadly. Okay, I will be right back. I gotta get some water. Alright, I have returned. So, let's take a look at some of the storms that are currently ongoing for this current location. For some of the storms are just to the south of McCook. Just to the south of McCook, we do have we do have the threat of large hail. We have large hail just to the south of Cedar Bluffs. You're expected to see large hail right along Interstate 83, so do be careful if you're driving along Interstate 83 just to the south of McCook, as you are likely expected to encounter large hail, large to very large hail, and possibly even gorilla hail across Interstate 83. Then across McCook, just to the south of McCook, you can see that we are expected to have some widespread purples, which will definitely be indicating very large hail across that region. And then also to the southwest, we do have large hail again, and we also do have like a very large mess of reflectivity here. We have, velocity here. We have a very large mess on velocity. The rotation is very hard to see. However, we do have some weak inbound pixels, some weak outbound pixels, or some stronger outbound pixels. It is going to be a little bit of rotation in there. It's not really going to be enough to really warrant a tornado warning. We do have a couple of areas of rotation, actually. We have this area of inbound and outbound. Then we have this area of inbound and outbound. Then we also have this area of inbound and outbound. So we do have sort of three main regions that could potentially become dominant. And then we also got like some other weaker areas. We have some inbound and some outbound. And we also have some inbound and some outbound. And we also have some inbound and some outbound, some weak outbound. And it seems to be a little bit better to the southwest. You can see that we do have some inbound and some outbound. So we do have quite a few areas of rotation. We have a huge mess of velocity here. We have a bunch of areas that could potentially be rotation. However, none of these are really going to be able to really warrant a tornado warning until it can organize itself, as this is I hardly know what's going on here. This is absolutely insane to look at. This is very crazy. That's a mess of the velocity radar. So let's actually go down and check out the slight risk for Oklahoma in northern Texas. We've been seeing quite a few strong storms across the Red River. You can see that we do have some fairly strong rain showers. However, we were seeing hold on, where is Denton? We were seeing very large hail across Denton earlier. Let's roll it back a little bit. You see that we were seeing very large, very strong reflectivity signatures that were getting into the 70 dBz. So we are definitely expected to see large hail across Denton. On its way, we are expected to see, it is going to be, actually, hold on. I'm in the past. Give me a second. We are expected to see large hail that could be impacting towards the north of Denton and anywhere across Interstate 35. We just to the northwest of Denton, we are definitely expected to see some large hail across Denton. So definitely make sure you're taking shelter if you're living in any of the areas that could potentially be impacted by this. As you definitely do not want to be outside while it's hailing down massive hailstones. And that's really the only place that we really had to take a look at as far as the marginal threat for, Alright, so my internet does do that sometimes. It just randomly cuts out and then cuts back in. We may see that may become an issue. I'm hoping it won't. But let's take a look at the velocities. Let's see where we could potentially see some developing rotation. We still have a huge mess of the velocities. However, it does look like we have a little bit of more of a dominating rotating updraft to the southeast. It does look like one has more so taken over. All of these, this could be one large velocity couplet. If I wasn't really paying attention, this could just be one large velocity couplet. We have a large amount of inbound pixels, then a large amount of outbound pixels in a very broad area. So this could be one massive area of rotation. It's probably pretty unlikely, but it's still definitely possible. It could just be one large area of rotation. However, it does look like this velocity couplet in particular did become more of the dominating system, more of the dominating updraft, more of the dominating rotating updraft. So that's probably where we are gonna see more of the threat for tornadoes. Um, is for that velocity couplet there, down to the just to the southeast of McCook. So we are expected to see maybe a potentially developing tornado threat. That one mesocyclone that was tracking. Let's actually go back. I think 21 frames should be fine. That one mesocyclone that I was tracking that did develop. This one in particular, I don't know where it went. I think it either became so I think it became so unorganized that it was hard to tell. It does look like it kind of just merged with this blob of green, but it does look like this could be one massive rotating mass of air with the velocity couplet being more so in here. So we could definitely see a tornado potential come out of this, and I will continue to keep you posted on that. I will continue to track this. But then let's take a look at some of the hail that is back in Denton again. Let's go actually check back up on the Denton hail threat. That is not the radar I wanted. Okay. So we still have very large hail still impacting Denton. We still have widespread deep purples. We are definitely seeing the threat for large hail across Denton and into and around Denton and into northwestern Denton across Interstate 35. We are definitely seeing the threat for large hail with a lot of these dark purples. If you do live in Denton, if you're currently being impacted, or you're about to be impacted by this very large hail, and you're tuning in from Denton, definitely make sure you are staying inside, as you do not want to be outside with these large hailstones coming down from the sky, as they will most likely be deadly. They could potentially deadly. They are probably going to be deadly if you go outside in those very large hailstones. And those large hailstones are falling from the sky. Do not want to be out during that. Let's actually check up on this one severe thunderstorm that's very close to the radar site. It does look like we are expected to see some small to medium hail with us. We don't really have all that strong signature of large hail. Probably just small to medium hail with these a few cells near Blue Hill and Cowles. We could definitely see some small to medium hail with that. If you do live in if you're currently traveling down Interstate 281, you may wanna be cautious, as you are probably gonna run into some small to medium hail that could potentially be deadly or not deadly, but it could potentially be dangerous to your vehicle. Let's go check back up on the storms that are currently swarming McCook right now. So as for the rotation, it does look like we have 3 areas of potential rotation. We have this, then we got this, and then we also have this area here. So we do have we got a few areas that could potentially lead to a tornadic threat. As of right now, it's kind of hard to tell which one is going to be the dominating mesocyclone. We could potentially see these could potentially organize later on, but as of right now, this is way too unorganized and way too weak to really support any type of tornado warning as of right now. So currently we aren't really looking at all that much of a tornado threat from this. However, we could potentially see one in the future with some of the storms to the southeast of McCook. But around McCook, we are still seeing the threat of large to very large hail with a lot of these deep purples and dark reds that you are seeing. We are definitely seeing the threat of large to very large hail. I am going to be doing a little bit of multitasking to see what reports may be coming out of some of the affected areas and get a better idea of what may currently be going down on the ground, just so we can get a clear idea of what's currently going on. So I will be multitasking to see what some of the some of the social medias are saying, specifically like Twitter and Facebook. I will definitely be checking those out to see if there's currently any reports whatsoever on anything that's currently going on the ground, including like hail size, or if there was a confirmed tornado recently. We probably won't have one as of right now. Actually, let's take a look at the velocity. I caught this out of the corner of my eye while I was trying to load up Twitter. We are definitely seeing some more organization, very, very slowly. We are definitely seeing more organization with the velocity couplet. Green are inbound pixels and red are outbound pixels, and the radar site is to the southwest. So all these greens are going towards the radar site, all these reds are going away from the radar site. So we are seeing rotation right in there. So we are potentially seeing a developing tornado threat. It doesn't look like that one of the mesocyclones has become more of a dominating mesocyclone. We are seeing this organized much more compared to the last couple of radar scans. It was brutal the last couple of radar scans, but now it is becoming much more organized. You could potentially see a increasing tornado threat from this area of rotation, and I will continue to keep you updated on this. As of right now, we may be able to see a tornado warning in the near future. Let's actually check back on the slight risk for Oklahoma and Texas. Let's check in on the current situation that's going on in Denton. It still looks like we are seeing large to very large hail across Denton. We are seeing deep purples, and even some DBZ values are getting into the 70s again. They have been coming in and out of the 70 DBZ, but this is definitely going to be indicating large to very large hail across Denton. We did have a lot of this hail pass over Interstate 35, so there may be some hail still on the road if you're driving down Interstate 35 into Denton. Watch out for that. But if you do live in Denton, please move inside. Definitely take shelter, as you do not want to be outside while it is hailing. Because this is probably very, very large hail. This is golf ball sized hail, and with it falling from the sky, that is probably going to become dangerous. And you can see with the new radar scan, we are still seeing large to very large hail. It's going to be more so on the northern side of Denton. However, we are still expected to see definitely a threat of large to very large hail across Denton still. It's about to move out of Denton. It's more so on the northeastern side. However, do stay inside if you're currently being impacted by this large to very large hail, as you do not want to be outside while this is falling from the sky. It will probably become deadly. Then let's go back to let's go back to the threat for Nebraska and Kansas. So currently, we still have this tornado watch ongoing. We don't really have any tornado warnings that are currently issued as of right now. However, we still have an environment that is favorable for tornadic development, as you do see that we do have this area of rotation here that is becoming more organized slowly. We are definitely seeing some organization in that rotation, and this could definitely become a increasing threat for tornadic development. It doesn't have a tornado warning on it just yet. We could see one in the future. It's possible we could see one in the future. Again, this area in Nebraska and northwestern Kansas is going to be very favorable for for the threat of tornadoes and tornadic development. We definitely have a very favorable environment for tornadic development across this region. And I will continue to track this, but I also will be checking on social media so I can get a good idea of what's going on going down on the ground, so I can I'm at a loss for words here. I tripped over my words. So I can get a better idea of what's currently going down on the ground and what the current threats are probably going to be. 5:15 CDT near McCook. Okay. So it does look like Vince Walty. I'm not sure how you pronounce his last name, but Vince, Storm Chaser Vince has there was a confirmed wall cloud that did pass over McCook. So there wasn't a tornado on the ground, but there was a wall cloud that did pass over McCook, and that was confirmed by Storm Chaser Vince. And you can find that on Twitter if you want. Radar Omega did post a tweet about it with a video from Vince, Storm Chaser Vince. If you do want to check that out, it is on Twitter. Now I'm going to continue checking for things. By the way, if you guys have any questions about what's currently going on with these storms, definitely feel free to ask. I will probably answer them if you have any questions about these current storms that are currently ongoing. I will probably answer them. Or anywhere outside of the storms for future weather, I will probably also answer them. There's not really a lot going on as of right now. Again, we are continuing to see a little bit of tornadic development from the storm southwest or southeast of McCook. We are seeing a very large area of rotation. With the current radar scan that we are seeing, it is a little bit more less organized, but we could still definitely see some increasing tornado potential from this. As this rotation does continue to increase in strength, we may be able to see a tornado warning in the future, but really only time will tell as of right now. It does seem like it's getting better slowly. It was very brutal on organization earlier, so right now it is it's getting better slowly. So we could definitely see a tornado potential in the future with this area of rotation. But as of right now, it's not tornado warned. But again, if you guys have any questions about what's currently going on, or any future weather depending on where you live, I will probably answer them. I will most likely answer them. So as of right now, it does look like that there was, according to Storm Chaser Ryan Skull, there was a very definitive wall cloud, and what he thinks is a tornado that is on the ground. That was west of McCook about an hour ago. It did have He is saying that it did have suction vortices on it, so there could have been a tornado on the ground at some point. Overall, the correlation coefficient drop was fairly weak. It was there a little bit, but I was thinking it was mostly contamination from hail. But there could have been a tornado on the ground at some point, though.